Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. I am here with the Daily Mortgage Rate Update, the only place on the web where you get to join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, talk about what's going on with rates and pricing. Today, we're going to talk about Fed Pivot. Mickey Bowman there. What is Mickey doing? I feel like this is an episode of Daredevil in season 3. Yes, I just finished watching it, so I'll give you the details on why I mean that in a minute. Also, we're going to talk about Powell. He is on his first of 2 days in front of Congress, his biannual testimony. We're going to talk about some of the Middle East drama and what effect that's still having on rates and what effect that will have on rates this week and where rates are going to go this week. So if you're here this morning, say good morning. Remember, you can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're watching on the replay, don't forget, give me a hashtag replay in the comments. Let me know that you were here. Let Facebook and YouTube know that you were here. It's very handy to do that. Don't forget to smash that like button, maybe tag an originator friend if you're on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, click that thumbs up. Remember, your comments help with my engagement. Plus, I like hearing from you. So let me know how you're doing today. If you'd like a quick reminder that we're going live each morning, you can go ahead and use this cool QR code over here or sign up at hmmr.io/reminder. If you're on your phone, take a screenshot. You can come back to your photos and use that QR code. I do send out a text message each morning when I'm going live. So if you want to be reminded each day, and you can, of course, opt out at any time. We don't sell your info. So let's say hi to all the live folks here this morning, all of my friends. Appreciate all of you being here. Giddy up, Mr. Randy Teagle, Allison Foy, Derek Weibel, Angela Walters, Mike Morano. Great to have all of you here. Who else we got here? Mallory Fotiadis. Good morning. Tim Kleila, Amy Blauser, Megan Bissell, Mike Tebow, Jerry Avila, Julie Lawrence. Julie, seatbelt laws are stupid. I said it. I mean it. Helmet laws too. Taylor Henry, good morning. Carrie Early, good morning. But you're absolutely right. You should be able to be on your phone when you're not driving, when you're stopped. That's just silly. So, but anyway, Kyle Mazikas, good morning, sir. All right, let's go ahead and jump in and get started. And where are we at here? All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll go into everything this morning. So let's share the screen. Here you go. All right, so let's click refresh. Mortgage-backed securities are down a bip or two. They were up a few basis points. Come on, we're clicking refresh. Here it comes. So now they're up 3 basis points on the day, basically flat. Not a big change here is what we are seeing. I don't like that. I like this. There you go. So we're currently up about 3 basis points on the day. Let's do a quick recap of yesterday. We will zoom into where that was at. Yesterday when pricing came out, we were right about here. Ended the day a little bit lower. That's a down move. We actually look at that. I can go like this. We were down. That's not good. That gives us a frowny face. But not enough to worry about today. And we're basically in close to that same zone as where we were at yesterday. So pricing could be a hair off this morning, but shouldn't be too much. Take a look here if we get over to the Japanese candlestick chart. So this purple line is the 200-day moving average. You will see that back here, this was, when was this? This was back in the end of April. We were above it for a whopping 2 days before it was back below that 200-day moving average. However, back here in March, look at this, we spent almost the whole month above that 200-day moving average. So we would love to see that happen. But right now, when you take a look at the technicals, this 200-day moving average is a resistance level. Remember, we want to see these bonds go up. That helps pricing and rate sheets. So today, we would love to see this come up and tap on that. We have support. That's this green line right here at the 100-day moving average. So you can see that bonds are basically highlighted in this kind of area right here between these two. So we've got here to here is kind of what we're watching. Now, anything that's closing near term, let's go ahead and I'll throw the lock advice on there. Anything that's closing. Oh wait, no, that's not what I wanted to say. Let's change this up. Float. Cautiously for less than 15 days. Here you go. All right. So I got it up on the screen now. Anyway, you want to go ahead and float cautiously for anything less than 15 days. If we do see bonds start to give up the gains this morning, we would want to go ahead and pull back on that. But otherwise, we're in an okay spot as far as things go here. And we're just watching bonds with the technicals. Again, let me pull this up side by side so you can see what we're going to be looking at. So this morning we would be looking, currently we're up a few basis points, 99.36. And we want to definitely be watching this 100-day moving average right here. That's actually at 99.22. So this is 99.22. And we would probably see, we would definitely see some reprices worse if we were to fall down and test that level. So if that were to happen, I would lock anything closing near term. Anything is 15 to 30 and 30 plus days out, though, I would keep floating. We want to see what next week's jobs data brings. So 10-year treasury yield right now, 4.35, kind of right smack in the middle of that range as well. You could see this is reverse. We want yields to go down. That's better for rates and pricing. So we've got the 100-day moving average acting as a support level. If it were to bounce up, we want to see it bounce back down. And then the 200-day will be acting as a resistance level here. So same 100 and 200 days, just like what we see over here with mortgage bonds, which is not a terrible thing to be. So some other interesting stuff, though. Let's talk about Michelle Bowman and Powell and the Fed and all that good stuff. So first things first, I want to take you over to the Fed. The expectations here of a Fed rate cut in July, they're actually higher than we've seen for the same month in quite a while. So there's still over an 80% expectation probability, if you will, that the Fed is going to leave rates unchanged in July. But if we take a look, that is changing. Yesterday it was 79. It's up to 83 right now. A week ago it was also at 83. So it's kind of the same spot back. This would be a rate cut right here. We're building up some ground on that. And if we take a look here at the December numbers, this is a big change here. So a week ago, it was a 20% expectation that would be at 3.5. Now, 3.5, if you remember, right now we're 4.25. This would be 3. This would be 3 rate cuts. And if you look, markets, we were here a week ago and now we're here. That is a big jump right there. Expectation of 2 rate cuts hasn't moved, but the expectation of 1 rate cut has reversed. So markets are leaning more towards a dovish Fed now. And part of the reason that we're seeing that leaning towards a dovish Fed is because of what's going on with Michelle Bowman. Where's Bowman's? I had her thing up here. All right, I deleted it. Let's pull it back up. Bowman, Fed. We'll just do that. There you go. So Fed Governor Bowman favors July interest rate cut. Now, remember, she was a devout hawk before. Usually you don't hear Bowman talking about Fed rate cuts. And yesterday in the text, I put hike, I meant cut. But Bowman usually is focused on inflation. She's now leaning into the idea that they should be watching the labor market. And in my opinion, behind the scenes, somebody in the Trump camp, maybe Trump himself, has definitely gotten into her ear and is kind of pulling the strings. I don't want to say she's a straight up puppet, but she was put in by Trump in 2018. She was just sworn in as vice chair of supervision. And I think her loyalties lie with Trump. Even though the Fed is not supposed to be political, we know that does that it does happen. So I am surprised to see her say, in this. So in remarks for a speech in Prague, Bowman became the second central banker. The other one was Waller. Waller tends to be a lot more dovish, though, to suggest that the tariffs will have a temporary and muted impact. So in other words, that the tariffs are not going to drive up inflation. So this kind of behind the scenes drama that's going on at the Fed, this is what's going to make next month's CPI data so important. If we go yet another month, remember this last CPI reading that we got was expected to show tariffs hitting, and it really didn't. So if next month's CPI inflation data is lower than expected, that's going to be a big deal. Now, we have the PCE inflation data coming on Friday, but the PCI is or the CPI rather, is the one that comes out first. And that one's the one that kind of sets the tone. So even though we're going to get the PCE inflation data this week, and it will, it'll be there, it doesn't usually have a big effect on markets right now. But seeing what Bowman has said here, this is a big deal. Should inflation pressures remain contained, I would support lowering the policy rate as soon as our next meeting. And markets love the sound of that. Now, markets are pricing in 2 rate cuts this year, but having one hit in July opens up the door for more than 2 rate cuts. And that's why that would basically help to see better pricing. Next week's labor data, it's coming July 3rd, remember, which is Thursday, because we're closed on the 4th. That labor data on the 3rd is going to be a big deal. And we do have one more report before the July meeting, which that will also be a big deal. But traders are going to be watching for this one, because if this data does start to show weakness, it's going to snowball what we see going on here. And they'll be able to argue that it's going to snowball, that things will just go down and down and down. So that's kind of what we're seeing happen. Mike Morano, Daredevil season 3. That's right. If you remember, it was the old Netflix one, and now it's on Disney Plus. I watched the Daredevil Born Again, but then I went back and rewatched the Daredevil season 1, 2, and 3. And in Daredevil season 3, Kingpin, the villain, he basically gets almost all of his FBI detail to flip, and he controls them. And he does it through a lot of, manipulation and threats to family and things like that. But basically, I'm not calling Trump a villain. It's just the idea of a central character who is able to influence these other characters, and the other characters, they pivot. They change their role, and they change their stance. And that's kind of what I see happening at the Fed. And this last vote was unanimous for no Fed rate cut. However, I'm curious what the conversation was behind the scenes. And again, with Bowman has been a staunch hawk in the past. So to see her kind of say, well, I don't think that inflation is going to be a big deal. Well, that's all she's been talking about for the last year. So it kind of does sound a bit strange to me. She started to curve in March and really leaned into it this time around. So I think it's here. Good morning, Jessica Wells, Troy McNeely. And Mike said, didn't Trump appoint her? Yes, he did. In 2018, he appointed her. And they get a 14-year term. And he also just nominated her, and she was sworn in now as the vice chair of supervision. So anyway, we got that stuff going on. Over with what we got, the drama overseas with Israel, there is a ceasefire that was put into place, but almost immediately it was supposedly broken or breached. And Iran supposedly shot a missile at Israel, and then Israel was reacting to that. So that's basically what's going on. But even still, this will still de-escalate and continue to de-escalate. The price of oil has come down. Oil prices, right? So if we look at oil prices, it's dropping even this morning down to $65. That was, if we look at the last 5 days, look at where we were up here, and it's come down. So we were up here at $73.78. So this is around $74, and now it's gone down almost $10 a gallon. That's a big deal. So even though we look at core numbers, that still is considered to be inflationary. And this is one of the concerns that markets had, is that it's inflationary if oil prices go up. Back in, I think it was like 2016, 2015, 2016, man, oil prices were changing every day. They were above $100. If we go back 5 years, when was it over $100? It was back here in before 2022. I want to go back. Yeah. So it was 2015. It was back here, 2014. When we were seeing oil prices this high, it was every day. Oil prices were really affecting mortgage rates, but a lot less of that now. That's with there. Julie said it was a ceasefire in a week, but not immediate. Actually, yeah, it was supposed to start. It was supposed to start within 6 hours, and now they're calling it the 12-day war. I love it. To end the 12-day war. It's funny how they try to make these little talking points. Trump declared the ceasefire after a night of attacks. You guys have seen what everything's going on. So let's talk main thing here. This de-escalation, it's all about the Strait of Hormuz, which it would be very, very unlikely for Iran to create a problem there. Oh, I typed Strait of Hormuz wrong. I did straight. There we go. So anyway, it would be very unlikely for Iran to create a problem in at this area right here. If they did, it would be a huge problem. So that would drive up oil prices. That would be bad for rates, et cetera, et cetera. Very unlikely now that that's going to happen, especially as we see a de-escalation. And the Iranian reaction to what the U.S. did, and they basically threw some missiles. I believe that's right over there. Where's Qatar? Qatar is right there. So they basically shot some missiles over here at a U.S. base in Qatar. But before they did, they're like, "Oh no, you better watch out. We're gonna do this." And it's the same thing they did when we killed off their big general in Trump's first term. They threatened us, but they winked and said, "Hey, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna show of force." But they were not looking to. They're just trying to save grace, man. I mean, come on. Iran is not going to stand up to the U.S. Bottom line. So, all right. Well, anyway, this is what we got going on. Very little reason to lock. We want to reprice risk on the day is low. I wouldn't really worry too much about that. If we do see a big drop in mortgage-backed securities, if they were going to go down, right now we're up about 2 basis points, 99.35. If we hit down to around 99.20, remember 99.22 is the next level. If we were to get down to that level and test that before lender reprices came, you'd want to lock just loans closing in the near term, less than 15 days. I wouldn't lock anything longer than that by any means. If you're trying to kind of next week, we've got the holiday. So, if you're trying to kind of squeeze that in and around that, you can pick up some extra time by floating into next week. I don't think we're going to see much movement. Mike Morano said Khamenei has been the ultimate supreme leader of Iran since 1989, 36 years of history. They'll stand down to the U.S. But yeah, I was going to say. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, y'all. Thank you for joining me, and that's what we got going on. It should be a nice, easy, calm day, but if we do see some things lose ground, most loans you're going to want to continue to float. You know what, Logan over at Housing Wire, how do you pronounce his last name? Logan Maltashami. I'm not very good at that, Logan. Sorry, dude. But take a look here. Logan, what coupon am I tracking? Mike, it doesn't matter what coupon you track. I'm looking at the 5.5 still, just for consistency, but it doesn't matter. 5.5, 6, they're all moving about the same, so it doesn't matter which one you're watching. We're not traders. You don't have to worry about that level of small movement. But real quick, if you look, Logan had a really cool chart here with data from Freddie Mac. What they did is, can I make this bigger? Yeah, there we go. All right. So what they did in this chart is if you look at all the little dots, those are, the Freddie Mac mortgage rates. Look at how tight they were back in 2015, a little bit longer 2016, very tight again 2017. And then you can see as they went down 2021, COVID, of course, and then 2022. I mean, look at this. You talk about what an odd year and how rates vacillated in 2022, started out super low and eventually ended much, much higher and moved much, much higher. And this wasn't all linear, but it's where they were at those times. But you look at where we're at this year, and we are very small again, very tight range for rates. Basically, best levels kind of mid sixes into the low sevens, but basically this range here in the high sixes. And that's where rates are going to stay. One thing I'm going to continue to kind of beat the drum. I think we're going to see some housing correction. I think inventory, all the signs are there now. We're seeing inventory increase. Certain markets have seen prices come down. Prices are still rising, but you're seeing a lot more seller concessions. And that doesn't get tracked. So yes, when they do like CoreLogic and all the different price increases for properties, but yet a lot of that money now we're seeing concessions and things come back in. I think we're going to see prices come down a little bit. There's a lot of buyer fatigue. Rates are not going to drop. The thing is, now you're going to be having that conversation with borrowers about buying a home. And as long as they plan on staying in it for more than a couple of years, that, even if we do see prices come down, that they're going to go move, they'll move back up. We're not in a bubble. We're not going to see a crash, but I do think we see a correction and, 10 to even 20% in some markets that are just overpriced. There are still bidding wars though. There are still, homes that are going for asking and above. Don't get me wrong, but I do think we are going into more of a time. So, all right, my friends, I will Motashami. Thank you, Jerry. Avila, you're the man. Motashami. I'll have to practice that. Motashami. So, all right, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up. Y'all have a fantastic day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.